Hi, welcome to My Favorite Mistake. I'm your host, Mark Graben. Our guest today is Carl Pradelli. He is the co founder and CEO of Nature City. They are a direct to consumer nutritional supplements company that he and his wife Beth started in 2002. Before becoming an entrepreneur, Carl spent 12 years in investment banking and private equity, focused on consumer goods. He holds an MBA from the Wharton School of Business and a BS from NYU. After more than 2 years, or more than 2 decades, running a family business in a very competitive market, I'm sure he's got some great stories for us. So, Carl, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am doing well, Mark. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to be here. I'm going to lead by examples. More than 2 decades with the business. Not trying to short you there. I'm going to blame allergies for my mistakes and or stuffiness today. I want to, there's a lot to talk about, including other lessons learned from your business later in the episode. But as we usually do here, Carl, let's get right into it. What's your favorite mistake?
So my favorite mistake, we were about a year and a half into the business. So now we're still early 2000s. And we got to know some people at the Home Shopping Network. And this is back when home shopping was still in its heyday on TV. I still think they do pretty well, but probably not quite as well as they used to. So we got to know some people there very well. And they really liked an idea we had for a skincare line.
Mm-hmm.
And they liked it so much, they wanted to co-brand it with us. So it almost be like a joint venture between HSN, Home Shopping Network, and our company, which sounded pretty good for a young company, right? Didn't exist 2 years before that.
Yeah.
So we worked on this project for the next year and a half to bring it to fruition. And as we were getting close to the launch date, we made some samples of the products, gave them out to about 10 women to try, got great feedback. Products well received. HSN was working on packaging. They did a great job coming up with a look for the brand. So it was all looking really good. So it came time to actually do our first production run of the product, ordering thousands of units of different, of our hero products and different products. And we chose a contract manufacturer that was, well, let's put it this way. It was an acquaintance of one of my small partners. And I went down to check them out, and they had all the right credentials and FDA certifications, inspections, and, they were real. But a funny thing, well, not so funny, a strange thing happened when we got the product. We gave courteous samples of the finished product to the women who were kind enough to try the product originally. And we started getting feedback saying, this is feeling a lot different. My skin isn't moisturized like it was before. The wrinkles around my eyes, before your sample really helped reduce the appearance of those wrinkles. Now I feel like they're almost getting to looking worse.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So you hear this once, you're like, all right, well, that's just a one-off thing. You hear it multiple times, you really start to get worried. So here we are on the eve of launching this big project.
Yeah.
And I went back to the manufacturer, didn't tell them that we were experiencing this problem. I just said, you know what? Can I have the batch records for what the product you produce for us, right? That way we can measure, see what ingredients, how much of each ingredient they used, and figure out if they really made the right product without really alerting them to the fact that something may be wrong here. And sure enough, Mark, they totally butchered it. Something that they're supposed to have put in like maybe 5%, they put it 1%. Something that maybe was supposed to be at 1% was in 5%. Whole series of errors like that, which is why the product was performing tototally different. Right?
Sure.
So you can imagine what a disaster this was, right? And we couldn't lead with these products. We were about to go on air, but we couldn't sell them. So we had to go to our kind of tier 2 products, if you will, to launch, which not a great way to start. Long story short, the project didn't work out.
Yeah.
It wasn't only because of this, although this was a big reason, just some other things beyond our control. So what do you learn from this mistake?
Yeah.
Well, a lot. I mean, this could have been something that literally could have been worth tens of millions of dollars to the company.
Mm.
But a bad choice of manufacturer helped sabotage it, really.
Yeah.
So it's not like I didn't appreciate the importance of a good contract manufacturer, but I guess I didn't appreciate how they could really make or break your business, perhaps.
Mhm. Mhm.
And going forward, I really wanted a manufacturer who was going to be more like a partner as opposed to someone filling an order, if that
Mhm.
makes sense to you.
Right. Right.
And I really want to make our choice of manufacturer a strength of the company, not something that keeps me awake at night. Okay,
Mhm.
that's much different. Look, I know peers in this business; they'll basically quote out every job to like 3 or 4 different manufacturers, and figure
Yeah.
whoever gives them the best price, they'll go with.
Mhm.
I hate that idea for a lot of reasons, but I will say, I've now been working with the same manufacturer for over 20 years now, and we are truly partners. Okay.
Yeah, and that's true with your core nutritional supplements business.
Good, yeah, really good point. This was a skincare
Right.
line, but
Yeah.
the learnings apply to both supplements and skincare, both personal care products. But yes, that relates to my to supplements. We've been working with the same company now for over 20 years, and
Mm.
sure, could I pay probably less somewhere else? But you know what? I have not only peace of mind that every time I test one of their products,
Yeah.
it passes. Anytime is a problem, and it's like, look, there's always going to be something that goes wrong, right? Along the way, you work together for a long period of time, something's going to go wrong. But do you does the party you're partnered with take ownership, right, of that
Mhm.
mistake? Because I would tell you, the company, the skincare manufacturer, to make things worse,
Mhm.
instead of saying, "Geez, we really messed up here. We're going to remake." We're going to
Right.
remake the product as quickly as we can. They try to convince me how it wasn't as bad as I think.
Oh, so you beat me to the follow-up question around, like, it seems like you, in a lot of cases, you would get a refund or they would stand by their work, or but you're saying no, no, yeah, they said not that bad. Did you throw the actual end user comments back at them then and say, well, no, yeah, the customers are saying this is not just a tiny difference in the product. It was a huge
Yeah,
difference.
no, exactly. Once we went back to them, say, guys, you didn't make our formula, and here's how we figured this out. Sure, and that's when he said, well, it's not really that bad. Here's why. It's like, no,
Huh.
no, this is really bad. Okay, you're killing a business I've been working on for the last year and a half, just
Right.
about supposed
Right.
to launch.
Right.
Now, if you really want the icing on the cake, if you will,
Mhm.
like at some point, their accountant calls us looking for payment on the order, and
Oh,
it's like, you got to be kidding me. This is
yeah.
a joke, right?
Well,
But
at least I didn't make you pay up front. That's what I was kind of worried. But or yeah.
yeah, no, that's it was a good. It was no,
Ugh.
we didn't have to pay up front, but look, it was, look, as you could appreciate, really horrible experience, and
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
something I vowed I was never going to be in that position again. And look, you also learn. I relied on somebody else, which you have to do in business. You have to rely on other people's
Mhm.
sort of expert opinions, if you will. But when it's a key decision like this, you got to do your due diligence and
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, this is like anything that could be make or break for your company, you got to be involved, and you actually got to do your diligence yourself. And
Mhm.
lesson learned. Lesson learned.
Yeah. Wow. Well, indeed, lesson learned, and I appreciate you, Carl. Sharing that story. Yeah, there are a lot of different layers to the story about, yeah, maybe not just picking a vendor because you know someone who knows someone. I wonder if HSN, because I mean, this was a big loss to them. I mean, to them it was maybe one of many products and partnerships, but still, it sounds like it was really material to them. I wonder if they try to prompt entrepreneurs they're working with to have some certain guidelines, or at least a kind of a protocol, or things need to check out in advance in terms of selecting a partner, or perhaps just making that quality check a routine part of the process after the first part of a run happens, if that's possible. And maybe not. Maybe they had to make it in
No,
big,
you're
huge
spot
batches, big
on.
batches. Sorry.
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And they, they did have that as part of the, you know, application, if you will, working with that. We had to show all the credentials and the experience and insurance and all that, all these things you would expect. So, but look, at the end of the day, you can't treat something like this as a commodity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, I just thought, okay, you give somebody the formula, the materials, they're
Yeah.
registered, they're credentialed, they just make the product, right?
Right.
It's a it's a made to order, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's actually for business, for products like this, and probably I'd say most things, it's a lot more complicated like that, and the decision you make could either make your business or destroy your business.
Mm. Gosh. Um, I want to follow up. You talked about this common practice of putting the contract work out for bid.
Mm.
I mean, I would take issue with the standard practice of choosing the cheapest supplier because that doesn't always save you money over time. I don't know. Any reactions or comments on that first part of what I was going to add?
No, I mean it's wonderful insight, and look, you have one thing go wrong like this, or your returns spike,
Mm-hmm.
or heaven forbid you have a health issue, right? That comes, I mean, yeah, that dime or 15 cents you save per bottle is going to evaporate pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I can't tell you, I've had countless people come to us over the years and say, look, we can save you money. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I don't know if you can or cannot, but I really doubt it over the long run. Same thing with ingredient suppliers too, because we in our business, one of the things you may notice reading about us is we don't work with generic ingredients. We only use kind of what we call branded, scientifically studied ingredients in our products, right? Which cost more,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also generally going to perform better, right? And have better safety profiles. So people all the time are saying, "Well, I could save you so much money." I'm like, "No, that's not what we're about."
Yeah.
I mean, and it's really not what our customers expect, and frankly, it's not the promise we made to
Mm-hmm.
our clients and consumers. So, cheapest is definitely not always best,
Yeah.
especially. That's true in so many things, but especially when you have something that's related to health,
Mhm.
So,
Well, there's that, and I think as you're touching on, there's the brand promise. There's the yeah, it's just what the quality level of your product is. Because I've got one more question I come back to, with the skincare products business, but um, help us understand a little bit of some of the dynamics or the competition in nutritional supplements. There's it sounds like you're maintaining a higher standard than the bare minimum for an industry. It's not FDA regulated the same way pharmaceuticals would be. Tell us a little bit more about that and where Nature City, kind of does more than just what's required. It seems.
no, it's again another good observation. So, supplements are regulated in the sense that there are plenty of FDA regulations. Of course, we got to comply with FTC regulations, a whole bunch of state regulations. The main difference between say
Yeah.
us and pharmaceuticals is you don't need pre-market approval to sell a
Okay.
product. Okay,
Okay.
that's the big distinction.
Okay.
So
My mistake. I stand corrected. I didn't mean this. I didn't mean to imply completely unregulated, but
no,
it's
no,
a
no.
different. There's
I
not this approval process of all the phases of FDA pharmaceutical approval.
no, Mark. I think you characterized it
Oh,
properly. It is a
okay.
different standard of regulation. I was just, yeah,
Okay.
that is really the big distinction is the pre-market approval, right,
Mhm.
before you start selling. So, for anyone who has some money, it is a relatively low barrier of entry
Hmm.
to start, right? If you just can go to one of these contract manufacturers and say, I want a product like this, get a quote. If you have the money, they'll make it for you. And then you go out and sell it. So yes, what we've seen in the last, especially this has exploded in the last 10 years, which probably, coincides with the proliferation of platforms like Amazon, certainly, even, Meta and now TikTok. You have a lot of people getting into the business for the wrong reasons, right? So they're really good and expert and exceptional at getting eyeballs on these platforms.
Yeah.
and and it's like, all right, what can I sell these folks? Oh,
Mhm.
supplements is a good category. It's growing. It's easy to get into, and next thing you know, they're selling supplements, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've had on top of the regular competition, you have a lot of, I just say, people doing it for the wrong reasons, right? Because they think they can make a quick buck.
Hmm. Or they're
And yeah,
leveraging their celebrity or whatever we could, the social media form of celebrity, I guess. So they have following. They're an influencer, what have you, and they think, oh well, I can cash in a little bit on my followers.
yep, that's another thing too. Absolutely right. You have people who are either technically really good at driving traffic or just have a following, and now it's like, all right, how do I monetize this
Mhm.
following? Right. And that's really what's happening. So look, you have a lot of products out there for sale that I would not recommend you use,
Mhm.
or be
Mhm.
very concerned, or recommend you be
Yeah.
cautious about what you use. And yeah, so we really just try to stick to a couple of there's a couple of things that we try to differentiate our brand.
Mhm.
And obviously, it starts with the product and what we put into the
Mhm.
product and how we choose our ingredients. Most of these folks we're discussing, they'll just say, look, I just want some type of product with green tea, and you choose the ingredients, and they could care less where the ingredient comes from, where it's sourced
Mhm.
from, what its attributes are. They just want, they just want something that
Mhm.
passes the label test and is hopefully not too expensive, and they can go out there and start marketing it, right?
Yeah, and
And
there's perhaps that bare minimum that legally this is what it says on the label. But as
exactly.
with all things, I mean, I'm going to make a parallel. A $3 bottle of wine is legally wine the way a $30 bottle of wine would be, and chances are the $30 bottle is higher quality and doesn't have additives and probably tastes better.
No, it's a great parallel. And then there's so we try to be I'm trying to think of a wine brand that you might be able to relate to, but I can't think off the top of my head. I don't drink as much wine as I used to.
Choose a different product category if you want.
Yeah, no. But the point is, look, we don't want to be the most expensive product out there, but we want our quality to be the same thing
Yeah.
that would be in that most
Well,
expensive product, if that makes sense. So
not going after customers that are just going to buy the cheapest themselves. I mean,
no,
there's always somebody cheaper, I assume.
there's
So,
always going to be cheaper, and someone who's fixated on price and looking for overnight miracles, if you will.
mhm,
That's not going to be a good customer for Nature City.
sure. Mhm.
But if, we love educated customers, right? Who spend time, investigating what's in our products, understands why we chose certain things and excluded some other things, and they're more likely to have a much greater lifetime value as a result, because they're gonna stay around. And
Mhm.
and then you got to provide a good value, right? So that's the thing we do. I mean, for the quality we provide, we want to make sure we're providing good value, and that's really a sweet spot.
Yeah. Is there a parallel? The other thing I wanted to come back to was you said earlier you don't like the idea, it sounds like, of constantly putting something out to bid, a company constantly changing suppliers because they're saving, a fraction of the cost, or maybe somebody gives you a good price to switch, and then you find someone else who gives you a good price to switch later. You said you don't like that idea. Tell us more about that and why you don't like that idea.
Well, look, I think one of the keys to good products, especially if you have customers who are, long term customers, is consistency of the product itself and the quality,
Yeah.
right? And chances are, if you use multiple manufacturers, you know, over time, there's going to be different nuances in that product. I mean, a lot of times the raw materials are going to be sourced from different places, or they may
Hmm.
use a different grade. The type of capsule they use. There's a lot of different things. And sure, you could specify if you really care about this stuff. But I would say if you really care about this stuff, you're probably not shopping your product all the time.
Yeah.
Um, Again, it comes back to a lot of those folks are just again looking to satisfy legally the label, right?
Hmm.
We want X number of milligrams, and that's all we want to say because that's what's important for us in marketing, and and that's what they do. But really, to answer your question, the short thing is consistency of quality is hard to maintain when you do it that way.
Sure. Um, and if somebody is buying something that meets the bare minimum standard, with the regulations and business practices that are in place, is it fair to say that the biggest risk somebody might face is a product as a consumer is a product that's ineffective, as opposed to, I mean, it's much more rare when there's a scandal where something is dangerous, but I mean, I guess that does happen, sadly.
It can happen, but I agree. Rare is a good way to characterize it.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest risk is you're just wasting money.
Hmm. Yeah.
Maybe there's an opportunity cost there too because you could have bought a real product that might have delivered. I will
Hmm.
tell you from a supplement business owner standpoint, the risk to me is not that customer thinks supplements don't work or that
Yeah.
particular type of
Right.
supplement doesn't work, right? So for the consumer, it's yeah, they missed out on potentially an opportunity and they now think the product doesn't work for them. For us, it just taints the category, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah. And then, I mean, I think does Nature City do, let's say, protein powder?
not
Or,
currently. We
okay.
have in the past, and it's just not a good category for us.
Okay. Well, because
But
that came to mind because I remember seeing articles about how that people who drink protein powder shakes all the time have to be careful that sometimes the cheaper stuff, or may have heavy levels of heavy metals in it, that some brands are much more careful about testing for. It's back to the quality of the inputs and making sure it's not going into what they sell, with levels that
yeah,
could cause
no,
problems.
yeah, you're correct, and I mean that issue has really become more prominent with the emergence of plant sources of proteins. So, like for example, rice proteins. I think arsenic is a concern, right?
Mhm.
Because using a lot of the material, it's not like you're just having one serving of rice. You have a lot of rice that's being going to making a 20 grams of protein type of
Mhm.
serving. Maybe with pea protein or some of the other vegetable proteins. Maybe it's lead or aluminum or something, right? So it's a challenge because because consumers really want the higher levels of proteins. So like
Mhm.
I think 20 grams is probably considered the sweet spot right now for a serving. And to do that, you got to use a lot of plant material, and
Mhm.
whatever grows in the ground is going to contain these substances, right? It doesn't make it necessarily even a bad product. It just, or a bad source for that ingredient. It's just growing the ground using a lot of it. So yeah, that is what's happening there. Uh,
Mhm.
and yeah, so it's become an issue for certain people, sure.
Yeah. What other advice would you have for consumers about being careful and checking quality, making sure that they don't get something that's not just subpar but fraudulent? What are some other mistakes that consumers can avoid?
Yeah, great question. Love this question. So fraud happens at every level. Okay, so it happens at the supplier level, where supplier is supplying something that is fraudulent or adulterated or just a bad ingredient.
Mhm.
It can happen at the manufacturer level, where someone doesn't put in what they're supposed to or figures out some other way to make a product that's not what it's supposed to be. And then you have the brand owner themselves who doesn't, again, is doing things for the wrong reasons and selling product that is clearly fraudulent or just a bad product that you wouldn't want to take. So that's the challenge for consumers, right? It could happen at every level. Okay.
Mhm.
So how do you deal with the supplier issue? That's why we focus on these branded ingredients over generics,
Mhm.
because their names are on our labels too, on the label too, right? Not only you see NHC's label, you see their logo too of the brand ingredient suppliers. Okay.
Mhm.
So they're on the hook too, right? And their business could, a generic ingredient, no one knows who supplied it. No one cares. You're not at any risk. Right.
Right.
But, your name is on the label too. And our advertising, then you have skin in the game. Right.
Right.
Manufacturer, this is where people sometimes don't really, it's harder to figure out. We list our manufacturers and tell people who they are, and they can go research them themselves. And again, we call them the hidden heroes of the product, right? Of
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
supplement product process, because you know if they don't make it correctly, doesn't matter what ingredients you purchase, doesn't matter what intent I have as a brand owner, things could really go awry quickly at the manufacturing level. So that is really important. Really emphasize the importance of USA manufacturing on top of everything else.
Mhm.
That's another challenge we've had in the last 10 years, Mark, is the influx of products made overseas. You could speculate where I'm talking about from, but I
Yeah.
mean, big problem. And then, that leaves the brand itself. And
And well, I'm curious.
yeah,
Why is, I mean, it's just lack of regulation in other countries.
yeah,
Yeah.
lack of regulation and lack of accountability, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you import a bad product. I mean, you're gonna go chase the person somewhere in the middle of wherever, China or wherever,
Yeah.
pick a place.
Mhm.
It's just, and again, they don't have the standards we have here. I shouldn't say, all international, but a lot of places don't have nearly the standards we have here in
Or the
terms of
legal
safety.
system protections, perhaps.
Yeah, but even just in terms from a manufacturing practices point of view, and how things are tested and how the process, how it's managed to ensure you get a quality product. At the end of the day, it's made how it's made, and it comes in on a boat, gets imported, and next thing you see, it's online somewhere, or in a store somewhere. But so
Yeah.
it's yeah, look, it doesn't mean every product made overseas is bad, but
Right.
your chance of having a bad product goes up exponentially
Yeah.
that way. So yeah, I would definitely, I would definitely try to focus on USA manufactured products from some of the some premier manufacturers to really protect yourself. Yeah. So the last thing I was just going to make, Mark. So we talked about supplier, we talked about manufacturer, and then there's the intentions of the brand owner themselves. Why are they doing this? Why are they in this business? I mean, my wife and I tell our story and why we do this, and we make ourselves very visible to anyone who wants, talk to us or interact with us. And we just want to show people we're real and what
Yeah.
we're doing and why we do things. If someone's not willing to share who they are with you,
Mhm.
it makes me really question
Yeah.
what they're doing and why. So I
Yeah.
think getting to know the brand owners is really important. And frankly, unfortunately, here's something else that also happens in our industry a lot: is you have great founders, great entrepreneurs who build the business, then they sell it. Nothing
Mhm.
wrong with that. That's a great thing. However, the new owners may have a different idea of how to run that business,
Mhm.
and they may say, all right, how can we expand margins here? How can we do things a little differently to make some more money? And then the brand,
Yeah.
the brand is different. That's all. The products are
Mhm.
different. So it's almost like you have to be wary of that too.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely there's definitely a lot of things you have to be careful of. Um,
Mhm.
it's your health. So I think a little extra time figuring out what products to ingest is important and worth it.
Hmm.
And that's why we kind of try to provide as much education about our products, ourselves, our process, and who we work with, just so you can make a good decision.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of decisions, I mean, I would love to hear your story of why you and Beth chose this business. Again, your background in investment banking, private equity. I'm sure you were exposed to a lot of industries, a lot of businesses, of different things you could have done. Why Nature City?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I got to tell you something. If 25, 30 years ago, you ever told me I'd be living in Florida running a supplement company, I would have bet everything I had that was never going to happen. Right. So,
Yeah.
so really what happened, look, there was, I was, as you mentioned, in the kind of investment banking private equity world. In that business, you kind of have what they call these golden handcuffs where
Yeah.
like your compensation kind of, you get a big bonus, but it kind of vests over a period of years.
Hmm.
So each year you kind of getting money that's going to come to you in the future, or it's in
Yeah.
stock or something else.
Yeah.
The company I worked for was sold in 2000, and everything I had vested at that point. Right. So all of a
Wow.
sudden, like everything was current. So I really had a decision to make in my life, and I really had this entrepreneurial bug. And so the question was, do I want to start over another firm and start the clock again? Or do I want to, now I'm in my mid 30s at the time,
Yeah.
do I really want to take a shot at running my own business? And
Hmm.
when it came to supplements, you know, uh, I really was excited about them and what they could contribute to the healthcare picture going forward. But I found shopping for them just a miserable experience, right?
Hmm.
I found going to those stores intimidating. You're just surrounded by bottles of pills. What do you get? The information folks in the stores had was pretty much superficial. Who do
Hmm.
you trust? Who do you believe? What do you do? So, really, you said, we think there's a better way to do this. And we kind of just wrote down how we do it differently. And that was
Yeah.
really the thrust of our business plan. And so we gave it a shot, and we're still here. So
Yeah.
even though we made many mistakes, I could probably do 4 more episodes of my favorite mistake, Mark.
Yeah.
We've done some things I think right too. And really it comes down to, we just said, look, we're going to treat our customers like we like to be treated ourselves. I mean, really,
Yeah.
that's kind of just drives, that's our compass that just drives us.
Yeah. Well, one thing I think it stands out that's interesting about Nature City, you talk about how team members are empowered to make customers happy. So you talk about treating people the way you would want to be treated. I mean, what does that look like in practice? Are there certain guardrails, or do you leave it to judgment where, well, if there is a mistake, we learn from it in terms of like what we did to make that customer happy?
Yeah, I mean, over time, one thing we've been really lucky with is our employee retention has been really, really strong. So
Mhm.
most of the folks working for us have been with us for a long time. So it makes it easier to be comfortable. They're going to make good decisions. I mean, frankly,
Yeah.
sometimes they put in their own guardrails where they feel like someone's
Mhm.
trying to take advantage of us, and they,
Mhm. Mhm.
they wouldn't like be as generous as I might be with
Yeah.
the client.
Well, they're committed to the company, right? I mean, it sounds like
Yeah,
that's what
no,
they're saying.
and they
Yeah,
just
yeah,
feel like,
yeah,
oh, this person just wants something free. She
yeah.
always calls and says, her order was 1 pill short and 6 bottles. And I'm like, look, we have no way of knowing. She's been with us for 6 years now. Let's send her another bottle. It's okay. It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And but yeah, so really I just say, look, your job is to make them happy. Do everything you can. Obviously it's a big thing. Let me know, but you make the decision how that you can put a smile on that person's face. Right.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you know what? I think at the end of the day, even though you have some situations like this where maybe you give away some product, which maybe you didn't have to. I just think it really just, I just think it builds loyalty to the
Mhm.
brand,
Mhm.
and I just think
Yeah.
it pays for itself pretty easily. So
Yeah. To look
there's
at
nothing
that as
hard to say.
look at it as an investment instead of just a cost.
Well, yeah, I mean, give you another example. We have something which when we first started, people were horrified. So we have a 365-day money back guarantee. Okay. Not too many people have a 1 year guarantee, especially in this business, right?
Mhm,
Most people it's
mhm,
30 days if they have something, maybe 60 days if you're lucky. And everyone was like, oh my God, everyone's gonna people can just want request all these refunds, and I said, I think just the opposite's going to happen. And I was proven right. I mean, our
mhm,
return rate actually went down. When we initially had 60 days, I think it was, and we went to 365 days, and our return rates actually went down.
mhm,
And why is that? Well, first of all, encourage people to buy more
mhm,
initially. So
mhm,
instead of maybe buy 1 or 2 bottles, they bought six, gave the product a true test, put the product to a true test, and discovered, it seemed to be helping them, and they liked it. And as a result, instead of returning it, they reordered it. And when you have and just practically, Mark, when you have a 30-day guarantee, a lot of people don't open up that package for like 2 weeks, right? You know how many things you order and it just sits there because you
yeah,
get this
you're
rack or
busy
whatever.
and you know, yeah, yeah,
So now you got to start taking this product. You're looking at the clock, like, wow, should I return this thing? I don't know if it's going to work. And, there's only like 10 days left before I have to call return. So, all for those reasons, we just said, no, we're going to have a 1 year guarantee. It shows how confident we are about our products.
mhm,
And it's just another business practice that's a little different, maybe counterintuitive still.
yeah, yeah.
But, I think it served us pretty well.
And I mean, I guess there's always somebody who might abuse the system. You hear stories sometimes of, people who are maybe abusing Costco's generous return policies, and maybe it comes down to it. There's a positive takeaway that most customers, most people out there are going to do the right thing.
You have to operate that way, and people absolutely have taken advantage of us. I'm not going to give examples because I don't want to give people
No,
ideas, but
no, 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 no.
no, they do. And you know what? But you're absolutely right. You got to believe in that people are good people in general. And someone does something to screw you, you fire them as a customer, and they never buy from you again, and you move
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
So you don't penalize everybody else for
yeah,
the sins of a few, right?
yeah.
So that's how we approach it.
Yeah. Well, and maybe one final question, Carl. As an owner of a business, and you mentioned earlier, things go wrong. I mean, one of the core themes here on the podcast is we're all human. We all make mistakes. Business owners make mistakes. Podcasters certainly make mistakes.
Right, right.
Employees make mistakes. What's your philosophy on handling a situation where an employee makes a mistake, or what would you coach other leaders in your organization to do if somebody say, hey, made a mistake?
Yeah, I mean, look, I make mistakes every week, maybe every day. So if you don't make mistakes, you're not trying. Really, that's the way I approach it, right? And it really, it comes down to the thing that irritates me. Mark may is a different way to answer it. If you keep making the same mistake over and over again, we have a problem, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you make a mistake because you had really good intentions, um, but you just made a bad decision. Okay, we'll live with it. You learn from it and you move on. So, I think there's a big difference between making a mistake just because maybe you're being kind of lazy and didn't want to do something,
Yeah,
and or you just really had good intentions, maybe you're trying to help a customer, and you just did something that was wrong. So,
yeah,
we don't want people to hide mistakes because that's sometimes like you compound the problem.
right, right.
So we want people to just feel comfortable. They can come to us and say, hey, I think I messed up here. We
Mm-hmm.
talk about it and we work through it, learn from it, figure out how we could change our process, um,
Right,
make it
right.
better.
Yeah.
And you have to do that. You can't drive yourself crazy expecting everybody to be perfect all the
Mm-hmm.
time because you're not
Mm-hmm.
perfect, right? And I think it's and you also can't anticipate what's going to happen every day. That's a challenge too. It used to drive me crazy. I used to come to work every day and have to deal with things I didn't think I was going to have to deal with, right? And I couldn't do what I had on my agenda for the day. And
Yeah.
finally, just say, you know what, you got to expect the unexpected and deal with it as it comes up. And that's the same thing with people making mistakes. It's part of life and part of the deal. So
Yeah, and I like what you said there. Especially about the idea of, well, how do we truly learn from it? So I think some mistakes get made because somebody didn't know some piece of information. Well, like that can be addressed, and a lot of times, okay, well now you know, they're very unlikely to make that same mistake. But when you talk about looking at the process, that's music to my ears, because that's so much more effective than just saying, yeah, well, be more careful. It's sort of like saying, well, hey, be less human. That way, I think the conditions that you described make it more likely that there's learning, and the mistake doesn't get repeated.
no, that's the goal. That's the goal. And I think one thing, as we kind of got into more as digital world, and even some people work, sometimes we don't document the processes as well as I think we used to.
Mhm.
If that makes any sense to you, Mark. And that bothers me a little bit,
Yeah,
because it's hard sometimes to remember everything you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it each time. And
right.
yeah, it's nice to have something to refer um, to help you out. So that's something hopefully we're going to try to get better at here at Nature City. So
Yeah. Well, there's always opportunities to improve. There's always opportunities to learn from mistakes. And Carl, I'm really grateful that you shared the story from the early days in Nature City. And unlike my mistake in the intro, I'm glad you survived more than 2 years. That mistake didn't keep you from growing and still being here over 22 years later. So
yeah,
glad that you're still here, and glad that you joined us today.
no, I really appreciate having the opportunity, and hopefully it was helpful to the viewers.
Yeah, well, I hope so. So again, Carl Pradelli, co-founder and CEO of Nature City. You can check out their website, naturecity.com. That's sort of no mistakes with the web address. That's an easy one for people. Naturecity.com. Thanks again, Carl.
My pleasure.